welcome to the Career Coffee Chat podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, removing career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Career Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, empowering professionals to remove career roadblocks so you can unlock more impact, influence, and income. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when you hate your job. Now what? Maybe it's time for a career wake-up call, particularly if you've lost your spark. I'm really excited today to have Denise Csaky join us for this conversation on what happens when you hate your job and how can you find your spark again. Because quite frankly, a lot of us have lost our spark right now, particularly in this current socioeconomic disruption. So when you have that time to have pause and reflect on where you are in your career, what you want to do, what's the next steps? Denise and I will be talking about what happens when you hate your job or your career or your career path and how to find your spark again. So without further ado, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about Denise. Now, Denise is a certified career coach. She is an NLP practitioner, a Master Energy Leadership Index practitioner, business strategist, corporate dropout, and we all know a little bit what that looks like. I am too. Former workaholic, and Lord knows many of us know what that is, who helps women create and execute their corporate exit strategy to finally find and do the work they love. Without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Denise Csaky. Hi, Denise. So glad to have you here on Career Coffee Chat.
Hey, Aaron. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, this is really exciting. So we are talking about today, for those of you who are just tuning in, my name is Aaron Urban, or Coach E. Urban, and this is Denise Csaky. And we are talking about, hey, I hate my job. Now what? Maybe we've lost our spark and we need to find that again because we're having a career wake-up call. And Denise and I were chatting last week, in fact, how many of us are having career wake-up calls right now. And what do we do with that? What happens? You know, I have that little feeling that I have a sneaking suspicion my career is sucking the life out of me. Denise, can you relate to that?
Oh my gosh, I've been there more than once. Yeah.
Yeah. And you shared that you're a corporate dropout and former workaholic. So tell us a little bit about what happens. You know, what is that feeling that you know you have lost your spark?
I think it's pretty clear usually. A lot of times you feel like a bit of a misfit at your job. You probably feel a lot of stress. You feel anxiety. You might feel like you're doing fine. You're doing fine at your job. You're doing okay work, but it's a little bit of a struggle. It takes a lot of effort. You might get really angry. So these are a lot of lower levels of energy that are really heavy and they just, again, feel stressful. And they really, when you're in this place of feeling stress, anxiety, and anger, vibrationally, it's like you can't even really see that there are other choices available to you. So you're kind of stuck and trapped in that place. And oftentimes you can feel like you're helpless. You're not able to make a choice and to impact the things that are happening to you at work. So that's kind of the feeling. That's the feeling of what it's like. And I think if you're there, you probably know it. You probably can feel it.
So Denise, when you have that feeling, and you know, honestly, so many of us have a career wake-up call later on because we've been heads down, right? We've been heads down in our careers, and we're just plowing along because we go to school, we get some sort of degree, and we graduate, and the next step is not planning. The next step is literally, I need a job, I need to pay the bills. And then we just walk through whatever open door happens to be there. And one day, I don't know about you, but I'm sure your clients feel the same way. They wake up and you go, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah. 100%. I had that moment as well, and I got it like when I was at turned 40. I always knew on some level, I could feel that there was something more for me. But exactly like what you said, Erin, it's like you get out of school, and up until that point in your life, when you think about it, you're always on a path. So first you start in, whatever kind of school, you go to high school, then maybe go to college, maybe grad school, and then you think the next step might be maybe it's getting married and have kids, and you just think that there's a certain formula that you have to follow. And after school, you get a job, right? But so many times it's so normal for people to fall into a job because, like you said, like, hey, I need a paycheck. So what's a viable option for me? What seems like I'll be able to make money and I think I'm okay at it and maybe I kind of like it or whatever. And you get on that track. And the thing is, a lot of people, they stay on that track and then it's almost like they have blinders on. They don't feel like they can get off or make another choice. They just keep switching from job to job within that same industry or same realm. But it's almost like, you're trading in the address and your colleagues for new ones, but it's the same thing that keeps happening over and over again for most people. And that, by the way, is another sign too. It's like if you've changed jobs several times within the same industry and you're still feeling that nagging feeling of being just unfulfilled and just like you're not really that happy, you're not loving what you do, you don't really care about what you're doing very much. Those are also indications that maybe you're not a right fit. And that it doesn't mean that there's not a right fit, that there's something necessarily wrong with you, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's huge.
And because one more thought, because I could just talk about this stuff forever, but a lot of times too, the thing that is a right fit for us, sometimes I really believe it's in there and on some level we're aware of it, but a lot of times it's hard to notice because it comes so naturally to us. It's such a natural part of who we are, right? That you don't even realize it as being special or unique. I have this one friend and she is a personal shopper for women. And I use this example to explain it a lot, but one day we were out at lunch and she was talking about how she got into doing what she does now, being a personal shopper. And she's like, for a long time, she's like, I just thought, hey, I'm a woman. I love to shop. What woman doesn't love to shop? And I'm like, me? Like, this woman doesn't really love to shop. But I find that so true with so many people where it's just, she loves it so much and she's really great at it, but she just thought it's just so easy for her. She didn't even notice it as being anything different or special.
Right. And that's what's crazy because Anish just mentioned that he said, follow your passion, the rest will fall in place. And I would like to challenge that because we hear passion thrown around a lot. And as a person who's working in her passion, I will share with you that it's a double-edged sword because you really have to watch being passionate because with that much emotional engagement, sometimes you burn yourself out. But what we oftentimes overlook is our gifts. Our gifts is what you're talking about, Denise, because gifts, they fly under the radar. We don't even notice them. We take them for granted.
For sure.
They come naturally to us.
Yeah.
And that is what I call your zone of genius, right? Where you're able to leverage your strengths. You're doing something that you enjoy and it comes naturally. It just flows from you.
That's 100%. And also quickly to touch on the passion point as well, it's like, a lot of times people will come to me and they're searching for a work-life balance. And the thing is, when you're doing something that you really love, that you're passionate about, that you're enjoying, that you'd be researching anyway, you know what I mean? You'd be looking into, maybe you're watching YouTube videos or you've been reading books about it all the time, or you just generally like it. You don't even really need as much of a work-life balance because what you're doing for work and what you're doing in your life, what you enjoy, it's kind of one and the same. And to your point, Erin, sorry, just like one last thought, but to your point too, when you're working your passion, that doesn't mean that you do need to set healthy boundaries with yourself when you're doing your work. Like for all of you people who are now maybe working at home, it's important to have that space where you do your work, the time and the place and the area where you're engaging in your work. And then you can put that aside and then get back involved with the rest of your life, with your relationships, your family, your health, things you love doing, whatever, all those other things. So just to go back to the passion point, it's like you can do things that you're passionate about, but you still need to make sure that you cut off work at some points and give some TLC to the rest of your life too.
Right. I totally hear you. As an entrepreneur who has been working, quote unquote, at home for many, many years,
yeah, particularly when you love what you do, you have to be careful to set those boundaries or you'll burn yourself out really quick. But it's
100%.
interesting. So Denise, if someone were, let's say someone has lost their spark, right? We talked a little bit about that. You lost your spark,
Yeah.
and you know that you want to, of course, because you hear it all the time. We need to find our passion, find our passion, find our passion.
Right.
The challenge I see is that people have this idea of passion that's not necessarily associated with their gifts. I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah.
So, or for hobby, I'm a cyclist. I love riding my bike. It's very freeing and it's a huge stress relief. And I do my best thinking and brainstorming on the back of my bicycle.
Yeah.
So I love the Tour de France, which is a major race in Europe, happens every year, although this year is a little funky. But anyway, normally it happens every year. However, even though I'm passionate about cycling, I will not be in the Tour de France.
Yeah.
It's not happening. I could be passionate about it all day long, but that's not my gift.
Yeah.
Okay. So for you, Denise, what would you say? Like, how do you work with people to help them find their gift?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you should say that. I, for instance, like I love animals and I had thought about doing something with like animal welfare, but I know that that's not what I want to be doing professionally, but I still love working with animals and, all those things. And so going back to your question, how do you circle back around like and distinguish between what you're passionate about and what your gift is, so to speak? This kind of goes back a little bit. I'm just going to quickly touch back on what I said about, what it is that it comes naturally to you and you can't necessarily tell. So number one, I'm curious, Erin, you said you get a lot of ideas when you're riding on your bike. Mm-hmm. When you first decided to go and become a career coach, were you ever thinking about that on your bike, or did you make that realization while you were riding? I'm just curious. Like, do you remember?
I don't really know. I feel like that realization happened through the corporate slog. Now, don't get me wrong. I actually truly love what I did.
Yeah.
But it came very apparent to me so when I work with people, and help me if you think this is true, you find this true as well. Oftentimes it's a portion of what they do that lights their spark. Yeah. It may not be the whole thing. Like I loved like finding all this money and making great processes and making people's lives easier, but really I was helping the man, right? the higher ups make more money, and that, while good and justified my paycheck, was not something that made me go, woohoo, let me go through the Houston commute every day because it's so much fun because I love doing this. No, what really got me out of bed at silly o'clock in the morning to slog through a Houston commute is knowing that I would meet with individuals and be able to positively impact their lives. And that's when, but you're right, it may have been just an epiphany that solidified when I was at that Zen moment on my bike.
Well, yeah, gosh, I have so many things to say to that. First of all, you were talking about taking the Houston, what was it, taking the subway or whatever it is that you take in Houston to get to work.
I wish we had subways. No, girl, we've just got cars.
Cars. Getting on the
freeway, lots of concrete.
The thing is, to that point, it's like when you're doing something that's really, really a fit for you, things that were challenges before in another kind of a job, things that you were really miserable about, you don't see it the same way. It's almost like, yes, oh, hey, cool. I don't mind the drive. I can listen to a podcast or whatever because I'm going to do something that I'm really excited about. And then I can't wait to get to work. What's the first thing I'm going to be doing when I get there? So even challenges that you would normally hate in a normal job, it doesn't feel the same. You don't see it the same way. And you approach it from a different mindset where you know that overcoming that challenge is going to take you closer toward what it is that you're really wanting to create for yourself. So I'm going to now segue into what we were saying before when I asked you about the bike. One of the first things that I'll tell people in terms of when they're trying to figure their stuff out is doing something that allows them to get into flow or where they really lose track of time. Because when you can get to that place, those heavy emotions that I talked about before, the ones that are feeling feelings of anxiety, of stress, of anger, of frustration, of feeling like you're a victim of circumstance, like you have no control over, like you're frustrated with your coworkers, whatever that is, when you can calm those really turbulent, heavy emotions, then that's when you can really tap into your inner wisdom. And that's when you can hear what it's trying to tell you. So again, that's why I asked you about your bike, like what kind of, if maybe that's how you connected to what it is you really want to do. Because, I'll ask my clients that a lot of times in the beginning when we start working together. That's one of the first things we do, is to be able to connect to and identify what those activities are. Maybe it's cooking, like that's one for me. I love to go drive along the beach not along the beach, but along the road that goes along the beach with music playing and my sunroof open. And like, I just really get into flowing that way. Whatever it is for you, that's where you can really start tuning into yourself. Yeah. And also, practices like doing a little bit of meditating, a little bit of journaling, or maybe it's doing art. But where I'm going with this is going there and then notice what comes up for you. What are you curious about? Like for instance, my dad loves cars. I could care less about cars, right? So if there's something that interests you and excites you, that's special to you. And I call it like following the breadcrumb trail. Like maybe just start researching it a little bit. Watch some YouTube videos. Connect to someone else who is already working that. Maybe talk to them. Find someone on LinkedIn. See if you can have like a coffee chat with them. Whatever it is, but whatever those things are that are coming up for you, those little sparks of curiosity, just start getting information. Just start doing that. And it's not like, and I'm going to let you talk for a little bit, Erin, because I'm kind of like going overboard here. But, a lot of people,
you love it. So I love it too.
A lot of people feel like they have to go from being in the job where they're now at and they're not happy one day, and the very next day, they already should magically just somehow be in the perfect career for them. And that's not always the case. In fact, most of the times that's not how it works. So sometimes people will move into an interim job to take them out of some of those stressful situations, right? Mm-hmm. Or, again, it's just about starting to get curious and just allowing yourself to see things maybe you didn't want to see before, and not think about like why you couldn't do something, why you shouldn't do something. Leave that for later. Just right now, first step I would say is just really letting yourself brainstorm and be curious about what's coming up for you. Okay. Back to you.
I love that. So I'd love to hear from those of you who are tuned in. Denise mentioned something about your being in flow. Mm-hmm. And when I'm cycling, that's definitely an area that I'm definitely in flow. So it's that time where you have your best brainstorms, you have your best epiphanies, you have your aha moments, things come to you, things just gel. That's called flow. And I'd love to hear from you, those of you who are tuned in. What is your flow? Is it knitting? Is it journaling? Is it meditation? Is it an exercise? Some people are runners and they get big aha moments when they're on a run. Plus they have that endorphin, so that helps too. What is it for you? Is it doing art? Like, this butterfly picture back to here. I had one point in my career that I had to choose. I was like, well, am I going to be an artist? Will I be a coach? I decided to do both because I'm an overachiever. But but I'd love to answer some questions really quick, Denise. So we've got some great questions here. So Cornelia asked, how can you tell what you're doing isn't the issue, but where you're going is the issue? So that's a great question. I'd like to touch on that really quick, if I may. So really, when I'm working with clients through what I call career clarity, so it's very similar to what Denise does with her clients as well, is understanding, okay, what's the root cause here? Is it who you work with or what you do? So you'll know, because what you do actually is pretty okay. Like you can find some spark moments in there and you feel fulfilled what you do. But if your environment is toxic, then maybe it's just time to find another job. And sometimes we find that out during in our coaching sessions, and we help clients navigate those waters. But if it is what you do, you'll know, because when you're doing it, like Denise mentioned, and I'd like you to tune in here, Denise, if it's what you do, what are those telltale signs?
Yeah, it's interesting because I totally agree with you, Erin, and thanks for the question. The first step that I think it's good to be able to do to distinguish between whether it's what you do or where you're doing it or who you're doing it with, just to take a step back, in order to heal anything or make some sort of a change and make the right choice for yourself, it's important to get honest with yourself and get real and see things that maybe you haven't wanted to see or haven't been comfortable to see or just couldn't see. So the first step is really to get real with yourself and get reflective. Think about what exactly specifically is it in the situation that doesn't feel right to me? What would, if I could create an ideal situation, what would that look like? And then what are the steps that I would need to take to be able to get there? So, they always say that you can't control what other people do or how they feel or what they think. It's more about just taking ownership of yourself and what can you do to make a change. So again, look to see what's not working and try and identify some steps that you could take, actively you can do to make some sort of a choice. And then what I recommend doing also is just giving yourself a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, and putting a date on your calendar. Like you can just put an emoji, whatever you want, like a star or a thumbs up or whatever, just so you can be aware of how much time has passed. And during that time, until that date comes up, try and give 110% to your work and to what it is that you feel like you can actually do to make some sort of a change. And then see if that makes any sort of a difference in, are you happier now? Are you fulfilled? What's changed? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? And then also during that time when you're working to make that change, that might be exhausting because you're giving even more. But the whole point of doing that is to leave no stone unturned, so to speak. And so you don't leave that position with regrets like, oh, what if I just would have tried this? Maybe it would have worked out. You don't want to feel that way. If you decide that it's time to leave, you want to just say, you know what? I did everything. I tried everything. It's just not a fit. And I'm positive about that. I can feel it in my gut that this is the right move, that I need to leave. And so as you're doing that, also check in with yourself to see what it is that you need. Do you need more rest? Do you need to maybe have some more fun with your friends? Do you need to, I was going to say go on a date night with your spouse, but that's not really a thing right now. But what is it that you really need? What can you take off of your plate so that you're still refilling yourself with energy as you're giving like so much to seeing if this position still works for you or not? Then when the date comes up on your calendar, you don't necessarily have to walk out then, but just take some time to reflect and go back. Look to see what you journaled about maybe in the very beginning of the process. Like, what did I say wasn't really working for me? What did I say I could do to make a shift? And then just be real with yourself again. Like, okay, what changed? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? Are they the same? And then be, again, honest with yourself. What do I want to do now? Do I want to maybe try another 3 months? Or is it time for me to start a search and keep looking?
Right. Great. Thank you so much, Denise. So there are a few people who have added what their flow moment is. I'd love to share that with you. So Anise says drumming. Caitlin says running, hiking. We have baking. Yeah. Can you make something for me? Mowing the yard. Phil, I have 3 yards. I'd love for you to come help. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Jerry said, and someone on LinkedIn added some emojis, but didn't come through. They came through as boxes. So if you like boxing, maybe that's what it is. So Jerry says, flow is collaborating in a connected group of team members. Yes. You can get so many great ideas with, and the key word here is connected. All right. And Jerry, there's a lot of people who aren't super connected to their team. So that's a challenge. And right now, Denise and I were talking earlier, and just for 2 seconds, I'd like to share with you, being in a virtual environment is super stressful because it's hard to connect for multiple different reasons, neuroscience, psychological, etc. But Rachel says going for walks, talking with others, learning something new. Great. So that's really cool. Thank you for adding that. So for those of you who have tuned in, based on what Denise just shared with us, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you in your journey? Are you at that point where you've given it 110% and said, that didn't work? Or maybe something did change? Or is that something you're open to doing? Or are you in that place where you need to decide whether to continue on your current career? So maybe you're in transition, or try something new, right? And I would love to know, what do you do next? So we've talked a little bit about, how to take those first baby steps, but then how do we know when something's right?
One of the things that I do with my clients is I call it learning your intuition's language. And so basically, I've noticed for myself, when my intuition, my inner wisdom, my gut, whatever you want to call it, is saying yes to me, I get very specific physical sensations in my body every time. They're always the same. And so for me, it's kind of like I get a little bit of pressure in my head area. I get like my arms and my legs will feel kind of tingly and goosebumpy. I get butterflies in my stomach. And I know what that feels like now. And so when something is a yes for me, even if it's like, I know I'm so clear on what these feelings are for me now, that even if I'm in a stressful situation, there's a lot going on and I have to make a split-second decision, I can like kind of check in with my body and say, okay, am I getting the feelings or am I not getting the feelings? I kind of know what it feels like and I can make a decision. So going back to how do you know if it's right or not, start taking some kind of action, start getting information, start talking to somebody, and then check in with yourself. Like, does this genuinely excite me? Do I want to learn more? Or is it just like something like, oh, I guess I should learn more. I don't know. Maybe I'll just talk to this person. Or are you thinking, yes, I can't wait to talk to this person. I have all these questions. And, it's just, it might feel like a subtle difference, but I think when you're checking in with yourself, you can totally tell. Because here's one more thing too. Yeah. Again, like just shut me up, really. Anyway, but, a lot of times in our society, we're so used to making decisions from our minds. And that's good for certain things, but we've really disconnected from our gut, from our heart, from our intuition. And that's really, those feelings that we have that are gut feelings, that's not there by accident. That's like our inner GPS. That's there for a reason, right? And so your intuition and your mind, they actually work really beautifully together, where your intuition can give you signals of where you'd like to go. And then your mind can help you figure out what the actual steps could be. But I think the big key, again, the whole point of getting into flow also is reconnecting to yourself, who you are, what's important to you. What are your definitions of happiness and success? And that's really the core of being able to make these kinds of decisions about what is the next right career step for me. Do I want to just change jobs in the same industry? Do I want to do something completely different? Who do I want to talk to? If, whatever pops into your mind, just follow it. Follow that so-called breadcrumb trail. And if it leads you to a dead end, it does. But if not, you're going to start going in a completely different direction, meeting new people, getting new info, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to segue a little bit off of what you just mentioned, that intuition and letting your brain figure it out. Mm-hmm. So that intuition actually has a very good scientific reason why you should listen to it. So intuition, or the quote unquote gut feeling, so it's an emotion, it's a feeling, it manifests itself physically and through emotion. That actually originates in the limbic cortex of our brain. And that part of our brain remembers everything we've ever done since we could remember things. And what's interesting is it does not have a capacity for speech. So that resides in the Homo sapien, which is a later addition to the brain, that very fluffy stuff. But the limbic cortex takes sometimes a little bit longer. It just depends on how strong the response is. So if you get an immediate yes or no, then I will share with you that means that part of the brain has found out that there's more correlations. Right. So it's analyzing what you're asking it to do against everything you've ever experienced and everything you've ever learned. So it's amazing how our brains work. And then what you get in return is that goosebumps, like you mentioned, or that feeling that just something's right for you. So I'd like to also share with you that Danielle mentioned, I've already decided to make a change, but I'm having trouble finding my passion or deciding the next step. So Denise, what would you say? Do you use any sort of tools? I mean, the gut and the intuition and your guidance is so extraordinarily valuable, but you're also an NLP energy practitioner and all these types of certifications. So what tools do you use to work with your clients to help them understand what's my zone of genius? What is my gift? Mm-hmm. And how can I latch onto that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of assessments that my clients will take if they're in that headspace. What are your different work values? Just kind of the more standard ones that you'd probably imagine. There's some quizzes that you can. There's also, I usually start off my clients with 2 sessions. The first one, I'm going to try to not get into it too deeply because I can also go off on that for so long. It's called the Energy Leadership Index. Mm-hmm. And what that does is to really just cut it short, it helps you recognize not just what it feels like and what it looks like when you're in those lower levels of energy, like the ones that I mentioned where you're feeling stressed and anxious or really angry, but it also helps you identify how it feels, what you're thinking, what you're feeling when you're in that flow state, right? Mm-hmm. But during these conversations, that's like a 2-hour long session. We have that one. And then the next one that I do oftentimes, it's a values assessment tool where we identify what your top core values are. And honestly, in those conversations, we really start digging down into things that have happened in life and things that it just kind of starts coming up in the conversation. Honestly, a lot of what I do is very intuition based, along with different assessments as well. So it's kind of hard to say that there's an exact science, but all the info just starts coming out. I think as we're in that space of, again, feeling like calm and balanced, then this is kind of reminding me of something else that you were just saying, Erin, about, it was about, I don't remember exactly what it was, but what I wanted to say was about, let's say you're in a meeting in your office, right? If we're all in corporate or in business, we've all had meetings before with colleagues and coworkers. One of the things that I learned at my past job was the very first meeting, if you're coming up with a new idea, is to just throw out ideas out there, right? And just brainstorm. And then don't think yet about like whether it's a yes, whether it's a no, whether it's feasible or it's possible. Because, okay, this is going back to the mind where if you're feeling like the yes or the no immediately, then that might be something to follow and listen to. Where, if you're having these ideas come up, don't let yourself think yet about whether it's a yes or no yet. Just let it all come out and just silence that critical part of your brain. I kind of went off on a tangent now, but I'm not sure if I answered the question.
No, I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah. It's almost like mind mapping, right? Yeah. It's almost like mind mapping. Some people, like I'll have people, if they want to kind of do it themselves, you might want to make just a list of things that interest you, excite you, ignite your spark. What I do through the Career Clarity sessions is I have my clients actually write out a list of what their expertise is, common task, what they're known for. I'll have them analyze, okay, based on my career history, what have I done that I really enjoyed, and what about it did I enjoy? And that helps us put some words and definition and frame around what is it that I gravitate towards. Because if you find something easy to do or that you get energy from, this is very important because I have them understand, okay, what out of this massive list drains me and what gives me energy.
Totally.
And if something gives me energy, then that's an area that I need to focus on. Because when we're thinking about that next move, we want to have more energy given to us than we're giving. Okay, we don't want energy drainers all the time. And really, I like to say it's an 80-20 rule because no job is perfect. Yeah. We're all going to have to do something. I mean, even when you're working in your area of passion, like I have to pay taxes. I don't like to do it, but we have to do it, right? So that's not an energy giver. That's a drainer, but it's something we need to do as a part of what we do. But unfortunately, it's not 80% of what I do, right? So does that resonate with you, Denise?
100%, and to that point too, for instance, when we look at values, and this is something you can all do too, there's two different kinds of values. There's conscious-based values and there's fear-based values. So conscious-based values are one that are inherently yours. Like they're things that you get to do, that you love to do, that you're passionate about, something you want to move toward. If there's a fear-based value, oftentimes that's something that we've adopted either through what our families told us, what society's told us. And oftentimes those are the things that we feel like we should do. We need to do them. Oftentimes they're things that we'll do to prevent getting in trouble, to keep something from happening. And so when you can find what your core values are, those are the ones that fill us up with energy, like what you were saying, Erin. And those are the ones that it's like, you're going to feel really out of alignment if something's going against those values, and to add to your list of questions too, some other things that people might ask themselves are like, think of 3 times in your life, maybe in your career, since we're talking about work, when you were the most successful, that you were the most proud of. What are those moments? And then maybe what are 3 moments where you just felt really out of alignment, where you're stuck, you felt out of flow, it didn't feel right, it didn't feel good. And again, the whole goal is to really just start getting that clarity and just start painting a tangible picture of all these different things. Because when you can see it, you start getting a lot of information for yourself. by putting, it's like putting the puzzle pieces together, laying them on the table.
That's great. That's great. So we'll probably wrap up here in a few moments. So I want to make sure I capture all your questions and comments. So those of you who have tuned in, please feel free to add any more questions for Denise or for myself. If you are in that moment where you're having, maybe you found you've lost your spark, or you're having a career wake-up call and you know you need to make a shift, we want to be able to help you and answer your questions live right here. So also want to let you know that Denise has a freebie. So this is really fun. It's the, now Denise, tell folks a little bit about your freebie.
Yeah, it's easy, guys. It's called the 15-minute me time morning ritual. And so basically what it is, it's the morning ritual that I do in the morning as well. Because here's the thing, so many of us, especially pre-COVID, we're so busy doing all the things. We're like on autopilot, like getting up in the morning, immediately thinking about work, getting into our car or whatever and driving to work. And we're so busy doing all of the things we think that we should do. And again, we're in that headspace that we're completely disconnected from who we are, what we think is important, what we're really valuing. And so that's, again, like I've said probably a million times already, like that's one of the first steps is starting to reconnect to yourself. So the whole point of the freebie is just taking just 15 minutes of time for yourself in the morning, just carving that out. And it's just 3 different steps that you can take. And the whole goal is to start the day off right by taking a few minutes of like meditating, just journaling for a little bit. And then also starting to make a list of a few things that you're grateful for. Now, I know that might sound a little bit like, oh, gratitude list.
No, it's serious. I mean, people, yeah. I'm sorry, Denise, but I latch onto this really hard because gratitude it's very real. There's a scientific reason behind why we want to align our mental resonance to the right register. Yeah. And that is because our brains tend to look for more of what we have defined as a focus. So I'll give you an example. If you've ever been in the market for a new car, suddenly you see that everywhere. It's not because they suddenly appeared. It's because our brains are focusing on it, because we receive 11 million bits of information per second, but we only process 40 to 50 bits. So we have to focus. And when we set that focus in the morning, Denise, right, that's so important.
100%, because a lot of times we're so busy trying to put out fires and think of what we need to do. Our focus is more so on what's going wrong, what's not going right in our lives. But by writing what you're grateful for, you're actually shifting your focus to what is going right, what's going well. And it does change your mindset for the rest of the day. And it does pull you out of those heavier, lower levels of energy of feeling stressed and anxious and angry, because you're just looking at what's going right. Instead of what's
so powerful. And it's truly empowering. I will share with you that my gratitude practice is the reason I'm sane through all this, because I love people. I want to talk to you guys in person and hug everybody, and I can't. It's driving me crazy. But it really, truly, the gratitude practice is amazing, and my clients see amazing results. And I know yours do too, Denise. So what I'd love to do is just recap what we've talked about. We talked a little bit about, what happens when you have lost your spark, when you're having that career wake-up call, and you just realize you've been heads down all this time, and you're probably spending more energy planning your vacation than you're planning your career, and you're miserable, stuck, you're frustrated, you're not sure what to do next, and you're not sure if it's you or your job or what's going on, but just know there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You just need to find your spark again and find that true energy. And Denise shared with us some great tips on how to find your flow and then leverage that information and leverage our own combination of our brain and our heart, right? That intuition to help us define what that next moment, what feels right to you matters, because not only on the intuitive side and the energy side, but also from the scientific side, there's a very real reason why we need to pay attention to our gut. So And then defining what the next step is for you. So Denise, what would you say, just to wrap up our wonderful conversation here at Career Coffee Chat, what would you have to say as a great takeaway for folks?
In terms of what the next step should be?
Anything. You got a wealth of information. So what do you want to share? Because I'd love to leave people to say a few people have already said thank you, and they've really enjoyed this talk, by the way.
Oh, and likewise. I would say especially during this time when our world is kind of topsy-turvy. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of changes, even in the way we do day-to-day stuff, from going grocery shopping to working to everything. Find moments to actually have some fun. Because that's also when you can get into that state of, you get into flow when you're doing that stuff. And you're, again, say it all the time, but coming out of those heavier mindset states of the ones that are stress, anxiety, anger, the ones that I've pointed out multiple times. But really, when you start doing that, that's when you're, again, just connecting to yourself and what you really want to do. And you're starting to remember. It's not even of discovering as much, it's remembering. It's remembering what's important to you and who you are and what you want. And that's really, and then it's just taking steps from that point on, as you basically create your path as you walk it. There's a great quote by Joseph Campbell, which is, if you think that you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, that's not your path. That's someone else's path they've already walked, because your path, you walk it, you create it as you walk it step by step.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And for those of you tuning in that are rampant planners, like me, we want our path laid out for us. It's so stressful to have to take it step by step. So Denise, that's really powerful and eye-opening. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Well, this has been a huge pleasure. It's been a huge pleasure and privilege. You want to find more about Denise, you can find her at thefireflymoment.com. The description, the link is in the description of this event. So you just go up there and easily click that link and mosey right over and learn more about her. You can find more about me at coachyurban.com. And again, my name is Erin Urban, or Coachy Urban. I'm a certified career strategist and executive coach. And this is Denise Csaky, and she is a certified career coach. And let's see all the things. Well, I'm getting out the list because I want to do this right here. Okay, she is a certified professional coach, NLP practitioner, master energy leadership index practitioner, business strategist, corporate dropout. Woohoo! Yeah. Former workaholic, and she helps women create and execute their corporate exit strategy and find work they love. And it's been a true pleasure. Thank you for joining. And I love seeing all of your smiling faces. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, ta-ta for now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you for tuning in on the Career Coffee Chat podcast. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is coachyurban@gmail.com, or tweet at coachurban, Instagram, coach.eurban, or reach out to my Facebook group, Elevate Your Career. So I'd love to learn more about you, hear your insights, and what questions you have. You can find out more about me at coachyurban.com. And don't forget, please do reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin Urban. Until next time, cheers. Here's to caffeinating your career.